Hello! We continue the Puritans. And yes, I'm wearing the same clothes as last time, huh? So, hard work and self-discipline. The Puritans loved these two. They would be out in the field from sun up until sundown. They would expect their children to be out beside them. And they were to be disciplined, none of that happy singing and everything. So to the Puritans, a person by nature is sinful. They really don't like people, not even themselves. So once again, this, goes back to the original sin problem. People are just born evil. What can they do? And could only achieve good by severe and unremitting discipline. We must watch out for the natural man, for he is but part of us waiting to come out and commit sindoms, like singing and dancing. Yeah, they really did think those were sins. So hard work is considered a religious duty, and an emphasis is laid on the constant self-examination and self-discipline. So once again, it's a religious duty to constantly self-examine yourself into self-discipline. That's it. Going to bed without dinner. Although profanation of the Sabbath, that means not making the Sabbath day holy, breaking the Sabbath. Blasphemy, speaking, using the Lord's name in vain, saying something against God. Fornication, sex with somebody you're not married to. Drunkenness, drinking a lot of alcohol. Playing games of chance. Poker, the lottery, wicked grace. And participating in theatrical performances. That's what it just sounds like. How dare you perform that Shakespeare upon that play? Doth mother know that you weareth her drapes? We're all penal offenses, meaning you're going to prison for these. They see you getting drunk, playing poker on a Sunday. Oh, you're going down for a long time. The severity of the code of behavior of the early Puritans, they claim, is often exaggerated. However, there was one thing they're really into, and this is a huge influence on the Americas, and they're actually going to play a role in the American Revolution. They're a very highly literate people. Oh, they could read and write, and they did. Even if they're only reading the Bible, so they wrote a lot of diaries, speeches. They wrote a lot. By the way, if you've ever read The Scarlet Letter, House of the House of Seven Gables, etc., Nathaniel Howe, his grandfather was a Puritan. You might have remembered him from The Crucible. Judge Howe is Nathaniel Howe's grandfather. He actually changed the spelling of his last name when he became an author, but something he did take away from that, even though he changed religions, he is a highly literate person, and even today, these are highly regarded necessities in America. You are expected to know how to read and write. So education is highly valued as a way to fight atheism, because now you can read the Bible for yourself, and to instill in children the value of hard work. Yeah, Miss Wills is going to sign you yet another paper. Hard work. Actually, it's more work for me to grade. So Puritans in education. Once again, they held writing of history in high regard. So not just scriptural, but historical writings. Great regard. Don't ever, don't be one of those people where a Puritan's going to look at you and shake their head because of your education and not writing history. They should be shaking their head because you're playing poker with your siblings on Sunday. They wrote narrative journals, biographies, hymns, although they chanted it more because music is sinful, and sermons. and almost all writing was religiously based. So once again, singing, you can write the hymn. That's when it was once again more of a poem than an actual singing a hymn. But it needs to be religiously based. They don't want to hear you singing about your broken heart, or what you're going to do on the weekend, or how your truck broke down and your dog died from the shock of it. This, by the way, is the school they set up, the university. This is Harvard. Harvard Hall from Harvard College. It is now an Ivy League university, which you should know, in Boston. I have a cousin who has 2 doctorates from there. So, Harvard was started by the Puritans. We still have a Puritan school, and it's very hard to get into. So that was 1936. The Puritans founded Harvard. This is the first college in America. Yeah, no Princeton yet to fight with them, or no Yale to try to compete with them yet. Just Harvard. The others are coming, though. In 1638, the printing press was brought to the colonies. So once again, the Puritans are barely here, and the first thing they're importing is a printing press. The first book they printed was the Bay Psalm book and the Day of Doom, and then in 1662 became very popular. It's a popular poem in the colonies. It's about the end of the world, the apocalypse. Yeah, fun reading, that's what we're going to write poetry about. Not about that girl with the dark eyes and the hair and no. Not about your broken heart and how could he leave you? He was your true love and you were his, but no, duty called him away. And he picked duty over you, and you're never going to survive, and you'll never breathe again. And no. The apocalypse, that's what they were writing about. That's what got them going. So from the day of doom, the pain of loss, their souls doth toss, and wondrous distress, to think that they have cast away by willful wickedness. We might have been redeemed from sin, they think they, and lived above, but possessed of heavenly rest, enjoying in God's love. But woe, woe, woe our souls, unto we would not happy be, and therefore hear God's vengeance here, to all eternity. Experience and woeful sense must be our painful teachers, who would not believe the poor credit and give to faithful preachers. Yeah. And don't fault them for the misspelling. American spelling was set by Oxford a couple hundred years later. There was no such spelling. Oh wait, here we keep going. The Southey lie and wail and cry, tormented and tormenting, their galled hearts with poison dart, but now too late repenting. There let them dwell in the flames of hell. They leave we them to burn the back again unto the men who Christ acquits return. The saints behold with courage bold and thankful wonderment to see all those that were their foes thus sent to punishment. Then do they sing unto their King a song of endless praise. They praise his name and do proclaim that just are all his ways. Yeah, because, their enemies are all burning in hell, so God's just. This is the Bay Psalm book. And from a primer, this is what kids are reading instead of, if you give a mouse a cookie. Oh no, there's no mice with cookies in the puritanical areas. How glorious is our heavenly King, who reigns above the sky. How shall a child presume to sing his dreadful majesty? Yeah, we're talking children being able to read this and expected to be able to. How great his power is none can tell, nor think how large his grace, nor men below, nor saints that dwell on high before his face. nor angels that stand round the Lord can search his secret will, but they perform his heavenly word and sing his praises still. And let me join this holy train, and to my offerings bring, to eternal God will not disdain to hear an infant sing. My heart resolve, my tongue obeys, and angels shall rejoice to hear their mighty Maker's praise sound from a feeble voice. Yeah, you know, that's what their kids were read to. That's how their children learn to read. They're mice, no cookies, no milk. Okay, we're going to then get into Anne Hutchinson and Roger Williams. Both thought the Puritans were full of it. They were born into puritanical households, and let's just say Puritanism wasn't for them. So the first one, dissenters, would be Anne Hutchinson. Yes, you need to know Anne Hutchinson. She's excommunicated from the Puritan Church and driven out of the community. Then, so was Roger Williams. It's okay, they're going to find each other. He's banished from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. That's what NBC stands for. It's Massachusetts Bay Colony. In 1635 for challenging the strict religious code and the government's right to confiscate Native American land without compensation. Basically, he said, that's not our land. You can't just take it. He founded the colony of Providence in 1636. That would be Providence, Rhode Island. No, it's still the capital of Rhode Island. And these guys were the first Quakers. But other Quakers and dissenters then were started receiving heavy punishments too because they stood up to the Puritans. Some were executed. The lucky ones were exiled and found out, hey, somebody's setting up a colony over here for us. They're not the only ones, though, who also brought in more colonies that were near those New England ones and didn't quite agree with their ideas. So in 1632, Lord of Baltimore, and once again, he's a member of the Church of England, so the Puritans can't touch him. He's a British noble who belongs to the Church of England, which is the King's Church, and church that, Anglican, it is England's. There's nothing they can do. So he happens to take by the land of, or was granted the area of Maryland, and he establishes another colony as a haven for persecuted Roman Catholics. And believe me, they had been getting persecuted as well. It got worse after good old Bloody Mary made a mess of things, and they're like, so they're being persecuted in England, but they're not even getting it the worst in England. They were getting it. There were another group up in Quebec who were Catholic, but dared not adhere to all the rules of the Roman Catholics, and those are the, starts with an H, Huguenots. Then in 1636, more colonists leave Puritan Massachusetts to seek religious freedom from the Puritans. This is what I've been saying about religious freedom, that whole narrative, that whole myth that the Puritans were the ones being persecuted and needed religious freedom. People needed religious freedom from the Puritans. So another group sought out with Thomas Hooker, and they ended up in Rhode Island again with Roger Williams. So Hooker found William and said, yeah, we're, a whole new land. Then in 1682, William Penn bought Pennsylvania, which literally translates into Penn's Wood. And it was all forest. Pennsylvania and Ohio used to be all forest. And they become a model of religious and political tolerance. The Quakers. As I said, they still exist in Pennsylvania. Do not confuse them with the Amish. That's a whole other group who's actually of German descent and actually broke off from the Mennonites, who's another group. These guys really are religiously tolerant. They don't care what you believe. Just, as long as you're living a peaceful life, you're not causing problems, they're good. Quakers tend to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They're against fighting. They do not believe in war. There's the word I'm forgetting for this. So, however, the Puritans are people too. Well, they, have all these ideas and this theocracy, even among their own people who aren't dissenting and saying we're no longer Puritans. There are those who just can't follow the way. So they honored material success. As I mentioned, it's a sign that God loves you. And they considered it their reward for their virtuous life. They did value their family. They're big on family, their community, their service, art and literature as long as it is religious. And they were known to drink beer and other alcoholic beverages on occasion as long as there's not drunkenness. However, by the 1700s, they reached a huge decline. There's two big reasons. There's several reasons. One, the war with the natives, the Pocoy, Narragantes, Nipmucs, and Wampanoags hurt them. Then the urbanization. More Puritans, non-Puritans start joining the colonies, and they belong to the Church of England, so they can't tell them, no, you can't join or you can't move here. Because the Church of England can go wherever, as long as it belongs to England, they're going. The Age of Reason, aka the Enlightenment. As I mentioned, Puritan ideas and Enlightenment ideas do not mesh at all. And the Enlightened ideas are more appealing, so you get these children who are born to Puritans, but the Enlightenment just makes more sense to them. And it lets them take a break on Saturday and maybe miss church on Sunday once in a while. So they're fighting in the Enlightenment, aka Age of Reason, just gets more. One, they attack religion. Voltaire was heavily against organized religion, and they focus on science and reasoning. So, no, it's not a feeling of conversion in your heart. It is, everybody is innocent, and all men are born equal. That's an Enlightenment idea. That is an Age of Reason. It is the belief that we are all creatures of nature, creatures of whatever God you worship, higher God. But we're all equal. There's no reason to think one person's above another. No, your wealth is not a result of a pure life. It's a result of all that hard work you've been doing. And the Salem witch trials. After that, everybody stepped back and said, okay, Puritans are kind of insane. Look what they just did to themselves. And membership greatly declined. As I mentioned, Nathaniel Howell changed the spelling of his last name so nobody realizes he had anything to do with any, relatives were involved in that. But they left us some lasting legacies, which I've already mentioned a few. They were a political entity that largely disappeared, but their attitudes and ethics did not. And they're still an influence on America today. This is how history applies to America today. So, they made a virtue of qualities that for economic success, this is the ideals of capitalism, self-reliance, frugality, self-discipline in industry. This is still the idea of the American economic system, and it is our modern social and economic thoughts. Also, the big concern for the education was important to the development of the United States, and the idea of congregational democratic church and government was carried into political life of the state as a source of modern democracy. So we took the democratic ideas and got rid of the theocratic ideas and kicked those out. This greatly influences Thomas Jefferson, who's a big proponent of education. We're going to see later, too, that at the beginning of the American Revolution, the king and the British Parliament actually thought they could keep certain things contained. Because back in Great Britain, especially England, they didn't have a high literacy rate. There were a lot of people who couldn't read and write, and they never factored in the fact that most of the colonists could. Almost all your colonists can read and write, and so they were trying to they thought they could keep certain rebellions and actions contained, and it ends up, no, you can't. Not when everybody can read and write and there's a newspaper system. And then we get into the Great Awakening, which I do need to go over, but not today. We'll do that after break. Bye.